welcome back to my channel if you're new here. Hey, how you doing? My name is Ash. I am a makeup artist and I read way too much, as in I read over 30 books this month. I know. Like I said, I read over 30 books this month, so how this video works is I'm going to be doing my makeup as I talk about books. I do my makeup while I talk about the 16 physical books I read, and then at the end I wrap up with the Kindle books that I read, because I read more on my Kindle than I should have. If you're interested to see the books that I read and my thoughts on them and all that, just keep on watching. Before I start talking about my first book, I'm going to go in with my Lawless Forget the Filler something cream, whatever this is called. It has a long name. I have really been loving this stuff and I'm almost out of it. I changed my settings so I don't know if the lighting's gonna be good. Before I go into the actual makeup, I'm gonna talk about the one book that I didn't want to DNF, but I did, and that was Beautiful Grays by L.J. Shen. This was my first L.J. Shen book, and I will be honest, when I started this, I had a bad feeling that I wasn't going to be into it, and my problem with this one is I'm not the biggest fan of love triangles, but I absolutely hate love triangles between a woman and two brothers. Any other love triangle I can manage through, but this one felt very bad. I didn't like it. I knew from like the reviews that I wasn't gonna like it, and I skimmed through it, and it's just I couldn't get into it. Anyways, I have my notebook full of all the books that I did actually finish. There's a lot. So I'm going to talk about the physical books as I do my makeup, and then at the end when I'm done I'll do a brief run through of all the Kindle books I read. So I'm going to start with my Anastasia bronzer. This is the Sunkissed Cream Bronzer, and I'm just going to use a random brush. I'm going to do this under everything because it's what I feel like today. And one of the first books I read this month was Hooked by Emily Mcintire. Now this book is a Peter Pan inspired retelling, and it basically is not true to that. It's the Never After series, so the series takes place with, you know, Disney or fairy tale stories and making the villain the love interest. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I really liked it. I do have the second, third, and I think the fourth book in the series, but it's not a series that's like interconnected. It's just all part of the Never After retellings, so you don't necessarily have to read them in order. I really enjoyed the writing style of Hooked. I thought it just was a quick read and it was fun. You know, it had spicy moments. It's more of a dark romance. There's very graphic unaliving scenes. James Hook is not the good guy, but the way that he kind of falls for Wendy is sweet. There is a little bit of twist at the end, one that I did see coming and one that I did not see coming, so that was nice, a little nice surprise. So I really like that one. I'm really interested in reading the second book soon, which is Scarred, which is a Lion King retelling. I forget what the third one is, but I know the second one is The Lion King. I think the new one that came out crossed is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Before I forget, I'm going to move on to brows. This is the Give Hella On Point pencil in shade 3. It works for me. And then the next book I read was Assistant to the Villain by Nicole Maehrer. I'm pretty sure I'm saying her name wrong. This was cute. Was it cheesy? Yes, very cheesy, but I like cheesy stories. I ended up giving this a 4.5, and be warned, if you do read this, it ends on a cliffhanger, and I don't think the new book is coming out for a year and a half, something like that. So this story follows Evie, who is a little bit down on her luck. She can't really find a job to support her dad and her sister, and she accidentally stumbles across the villain, who you learn later his name is Tristan, and he offers her a job as his assistant. It's kind of funny how, like, written in a way, like, the villain just sounds so ridiculous. Like, the name, the villain. It's just ridiculous. But there are twists in the story. I honestly didn't see the twist at the end, and that's what gave it a higher rating for me. I know some people weren't that happy with it, but I really enjoyed it for just a quick, fun read. So suffice to say, I am excited for the next book. I just hate that I have to wait so long for it. And then I happened to read Everything the Darkness Eats by LaRocca. Now, this book is a horror story. Pretty short, it's not too big. I will say I was a little bit disappointed in it, and I gave it a 3. I just kind of expected more of like the ritualistic side of it. Basically, the main characters in this are Ghost, a man named Hart Crowley, and then a couple, Brett and Malik. I'm gonna go with the Urban Decay Hydromaniac and Wrecked. Everything the Darkness Eats, it was a story where it's like, I liked the idea of it more than I liked the actual execution of it. I am interested in reading more of Eric LaRocca's stories because the concept was there. It was just, I don't know, there's something about it I didn't like. And it wasn't like this felt too far-fetched or anything. It was more like the idea was there, but I wish it was just executed a little bit better, a little more fleshed out. The creep factor was there. I think one of the things that made the book a 3-star for me was I'm a person that is typically okay with reading like gore and like trauma, crime, sort of that. I don't feel like I personally need a trigger warning for most things, but I will say for this one there was no trigger warnings, and if you are uncomfortable with reading books that have violence, very bad violence towards those in the LGBTQ plus community, this book does have that theme in there. Very graphic, against Brett and Malik, and yeah, keep that in mind. So while I talk about the next few books, I'm gonna go in with my Pure Lease BB cream. This is in Fair something, I don't know. Yeah, Fair. So I decided to take a break from horror and stuff, and I went with a cute book. This is Built to Last by Erin Hahn. It's not horrible, but I didn't love it. I gave this one a 3-star. This follows Shelby, who is a former child star, and she left Hollywood and became a basically furniture restorer. She worked with her dad. She had a childhood love interest. I say childhood, they were teenagers, and that was with Cameron, and he ended up leaving their show that they were working on, and they didn't reconnect again for a while. They've always had a thing for each other, but things just didn't work out for them. The book wasn't bad. I just feel like the storyline, there wasn't anything to it. It was just like, not that you need drama, but like there was no conflict other than them just working through their emotions, and sometimes that's nice to read, but at the end of the day I wanted a little something more. The back of the book made it seem like there was like a love triangle going on, but like that wasn't really the case. So I don't know, I felt like there could have been more, because like everything just kind of like happened but nothing happened, and then it was just kind of neatly tied up at the end, and I just didn't really feel good about it. But I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't horrible. Would I read it again? No, I would not. And then I finished The Magic of Lemon Drop Pie by Rachel Linden. This was cute. I really liked this story. This had a lot of good like life lessons, life quotes, something like that, where I ended up finishing the book and was like, huh, that's a good way to look at things. So this book is about a woman called Lolly. She is approaching her 33rd birthday, and her sister found her journal from when she was younger about goals that she wanted to hit in her life, and she realized, wow, I didn't do any of these things. So she tries to basically figure out how to make at least some of her list happen before her birthday. She ends up getting these magic lemon drops from her aunt that lets her live an alternate life, and she learns what it would be like if she followed her dream and opened a shop in somewhere in the UK. I can't remember. Or if her mom was alive, and what if she didn't end things with her fiance. It was cute. I liked it. And if I didn't say, I gave that 4 stars. Now this next book, this one, Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. This took me forever to read. I started this book before I started these two, and I finished these two before I finished this one. I'm gonna go with concealer. This is my Jaclyn Cosmetics one. Don't really like it, but I'm just using it to use it. So this is about a woman who witnesses her son commit a murder right outside their family home, her 18-year-old son. And she can't believe it's happening, all this stuff. And she ends up, after being at the police station, she ends up going home, falling asleep, and she wakes up, and it's the day before. And it's like, what the hell? She ends up keep going back in time, trying to figure out how to stop this crime from happening. She uncovers many, many secrets in the past that she was oblivious to, and honestly, I really enjoyed the story once I got into it. I would say like the first third of the story is really slow getting into it, but once she starts skipping time back and back and back, it's a really interesting story. It's kind of almost like a take on the Butterfly Effect, where one action has a rippling effect. But I actually ended up getting a 5 because I really did like it. I didn't really see the twist happening. I did foresee some things happening, but That's my problem reading thrillers, is I try to figure it out before the story is finished, and it's why thrillers take me the longest to get through, because I just think about things. So I'm going to set my concealer with my Anastasia powder. This is just my go-to. And then the next book I read was In A Cornfield by Adam Cesare. I apologize if I'm saying the name wrong. I actually quite enjoyed this once I got into it. I gave this 4.5. What I said the most about this is it reads like you're watching a slasher film, and it's just really great. You have this teenage girl, Quinn, who moves with her dad to this small town in the middle of nowhere where everything's a little weird, and she basically gets entangled with a group of teenagers who, I wouldn't say they terrorize the town, it's more like they're in a small town, there's nothing else to do. And I grew up in a small town and there's really nothing much you can do. So they play like pranks on everybody, and like the adults weren't happy with it, you know, that sort of thing. Obviously it's Clown in a Cornfield, but at this party where they probably shouldn't have been throwing a party, but it is what it is. And then slowly the teenagers are getting attacked by clowns. And it's graphic. It's graphic, it's bloody, it's great. It ends on a cliffhanger, kinda. Not so much a cliffhanger, but like a teaser for book 2, because there is a second book, which I did not pick up, but I am interested in picking it up. It was a very enjoyable read. I'm glad I picked it up. I didn't necessarily find it like scary, but it was entertaining. I went in with my other powder and just kind of wiping away the excess Anastasia powder. I still have so many books to talk about. Oh my god, I'm gonna try to speed this up. That's what I need to do, speed it up. Right, next book I managed to get through was A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is the book 1 in the Hades and Persephone storyline. I believe that there are several books in the series. I just haven't read further than this one. As the first one, I did enjoy it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really like the idea of Hades and Persephone. I love the different storylines, the different iterations people do. It's interesting. I enjoy it. I'm gonna go in with this ColourPop blush. This is Brute Flute. It's like a cream, kind of something. Just a little bit, and I'll blend it out. I will say for this book, I think I'm just starting to understand that it's just the way Persephone is written and everything, but I just found it a little bit annoying. Just a little bit. Overall, I enjoyed it. It does set up at the end for, you know, a continuation in the series, so I don't know like the full extent of what's gonna happen, but in this one it sets up Hades and Persephone meeting, them striking basically a deal, and her coming into her like powers. Moving on, I'm gonna go in with my Becca bronzer. Almost done with this one, almost done. The next book I ended up reading was Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I quite enjoyed this one. I ended up giving this one a 4-star rating. This follows a woman named Vera who ends up going back to her childhood home because her mother was dying, and she wanted Vera to be there to kind of not really help her in the end, but to basically get the house in order. Vera kind of didn't want to go back to her home because her dad was a serial killer and killed people in their basement. She ends up going back home, and then there's an artist that's living in the shed behind the house, and he's basically kind of taking things from the house and making art. And you know what? It's creepy. I'll give it, it's creepy. It wasn't like overly scary. It wasn't the type of book that I would read and be like, I can't sleep at the end of this. I've read a few of those. This one was fine. One of the main interesting things is trying to figure out what Vera's relationship was with her father and what happened. Like, why was he killing people, and then why does she feel guilty? And the end, like, I don't even know what I can say happens in the end. I don't want to say anything because I would spoil it, but it's like, huh, interesting. Anyway, yeah, creepy, different, totally different take on a haunted house story. This next book I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to talk about it briefly, then I'll continue my makeup. I read the short novella The Dare by Harley LaRoux. This is a short, spicy erotica little story. It takes place on Halloween between Jessica and her favorite victim. She was the bully in high school, Mason, and his friends. This is technically like a prequel to the Losers Part 1 and Part 2, which I do have. I didn't get to read them after reading this, but I wanted to read this because it takes place on Halloween, and I thought, you know, October, Halloween, perfect. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4. I'd say at least like 70% of this is spice. There's not much like storyline to it. There's a little bit about what happens with Mason and Jessica, but it's not really so much about a relationship. It's more about domination. Not that I need any more blush, I just want a little bit more. This is ColourPop Silence. It's a bright red. I just want a touch of it. And the next book I read was The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen by K.J. Charles. This is a romance, so if you're not into that, obviously don't pick it up. This follows Gareth, who has a little tryst with a man who goes by the name Kent, who you later find out is Joss. And they had a short-lived relationship, and then they went on their ways. This takes place in like Napoleon era, so there's a little bit about the French War. It doesn't take place in France, but it's talked about. So Gareth actually ends up going back to his father's estate, who he hasn't seen his father since he was like 6, and he ends up taking over the house because his dad passed away. He's in this little village around Kent, and he ends up gaining the attention of the smugglers in the area, who just so happen to be led by Joss. So it's mainly a story about Gareth fighting what he knows is wrong with the smugglers, and then the smugglers protecting their own, and Joss knowing that he can't really be his true self. It's an interesting take on, 18th century men in a relationship trying to fight what they want versus what they know society doesn't want them to have. But I really like this one. I ended up giving it a 4, and I just thought it was cute. I have the Cheeky palette from LEJ Beauty. I'm gonna go into this lightest shade while I talk about this book. I got this knowing exactly what it was gonna be, and it still kind of shocked me at what it was. This is Sally Thorne's Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match. Look at that highlight. Such a good highlight. So Angelika Frankenstein is the sister of Victor Frankenstein, who creates, Mary Shelley's version, the monster. She is 24. She's feeling the effects of being 24 and not having a man in her life because she's too weird because she wears pants and she's too smart for all the other men. So the only thing that makes logical sense, instead of moving away to try to find a better man, is to go to the morgue and pick out parts to create your perfect man. And it was just kind of like, I understand the idea of, the idea of Frankenstein is reanimating a corpse and putting together parts to make a corpse. But when you're with your brother and you're spending too much time debating on which stick your new man should have, it's weird. It's weird. It's like you're talking about that with your brother. That's weird. Now, I gave it a 3 just because I did end up getting through it. And if you can look past how weird it is that she created a man from various body parts with the sole purpose to love her and F her, if you can look past all that, it was kind of sweet. You got Victor and Angelika realizing that maybe they're wrong in their experiments and they should, be better people. They learn that they shouldn't be just holed up in their big old house with all their apples and not help the village that is struggling just below them. I didn't like it. I didn't like it, but I suffered through it. Before I forget, I'm just gonna go in with my Freck. A few dots. My face makeup is not looking the best. I think it's the Pure Lease thing. It took so long doing my face makeup. I only have 4 more books, physical books, to talk about. So I'm gonna prime with my Anastasia eye primer, because why not? Love this stuff. I'm not doing anything like really interesting, I guess, for my eye look. I kind of want it to be simple. I'm actually filming this on November 1st, and it snowed all day yesterday on Halloween. Usually on the 1st I end up taking down all my Halloween decorations and decorating for Christmas, but I kind of haven't felt like doing that this year, so I'm gonna wait a few days, I guess. I'm gonna slowly start taking down my Halloween stuff. Anyways, the palette I'm gonna use is the Jaclyn Hill Strawberries Feels. Probably do like a reddy look, so I'm gonna start the white and work with some of these tones, something like that. So the next book I read was Twice Shy by Sarah Hogle. This was actually very cute. I gave it a 4-star rating. This involves Mabel, who finds out that her great aunt passed away, who she hasn't seen in a while, and she left her house to her entire estate. She ends up basically leaving her dead-end job working at the hotel where she was staying at, and she packs her things and takes off, only to find out that there's a stipulation in her aunt's will. Basically, it wasn't just her inheriting it. Apparently, her great aunt had a groundskeeper who helped take care of her in the last years of her life, and she decided to give both him and her the estate. Him being Wesley, who is freaking adorable. I think one thing that annoyed me about this story was Mabel's daydreaming fantasies. It's one thing to experience it, but it's another thing to awkwardly read it. I will say it's cute how Wesley and Mabel, how their relationship grows and how their attraction is. It's very sweet. Wesley suffers from severe anxiety and he doesn't like being around people, but he found that he could be around Maple. It was sweet. It was sweet. And the next book I read was Ghost Eaters by Clair, Mcleod, Chapman. This book, oh my god, I'm not a fan of mushrooms as is. Can't look at mushrooms the same. So Ghost Eaters is in the perspective of Erin, who is basically dealing with her on-again, off-again boyfriend Silas, who basically comes back into her life whenever he needs something. It's a very heavy book on drug addiction, addictions in general, and Silas ends up ODing, and Erin is left reeling in the fact that she pushed him away at the end. She told him to get out of her life, and then he winds up dead. And that's that, you know. I can't imagine that being the last thing you say to somebody who, regardless of the situation, as much as you hated what was going on, you still loved them. But then your last words were, get out of my life. You know, that's a hard pill to swallow. So the story really picks up when Silas dies, and Tobias comes over, basically says he has a way to contact Silas again. It's something Silas was working on because Silas wanted to reconnect with his mother that was has been dead for years. And it starts with not asking, do you want to get high? It's like, do you want to get haunted? And she didn't believe it at first, but she ends up taking this random pill that supposedly lets you see ghosts. And she does make a connection with Silas, and she gets so, I want to say enamored with it. Anyway, she takes it and she feels it, but then it's like she wants more. She wants more. It's always she needs more. Eventually, it gets really bad, and mushrooms, man. Mushrooms. Can't think of them the same way. I did really like this. I found that it was very easy to get through because it's kind of broken up in parts. So you get the prologue, which is a ghost story, which starts at the beginning before Silas dies. And you get part 1, losing a friend. It doesn't start with Silas being dead. It starts with what leads up to him being dead. Part 2, finding a home. Part 3, withdrawal. Part 4, chasing the phantom. And part 5, giving up the ghost. There are questions at the end. Number 8 is, what do you imagine happens to Erin after the book ends? I have my thoughts. You can skip to the next book if you don't want to know this, but I think in the end, when she goes back to the area where everything happened, where the abandoned houses were, I think when she picks up the mushroom, she picked up Silas, and I think she's gonna succumb to the addiction again. But again, mushrooms, man. Mushrooms. So then I read A God in the Shed by J.F. Dubeau. This was very interesting. I ended up tabbing important things, and then I ended up tabbing whenever there was a different character. So you end up following the storyline from Stephen Crowley's perspective. He's the inspector in St. Ferdinand, and then there is a teenage girl called Venus Mackenzie who also follows her storyline, but there's other people interspersed with it. Crowley has a son that's a little bit older than Venus, Daniel, who's involved in the story, and the story starts back in the late 1800s, 1873, and fast forward to, I'm guessing it's current times. It doesn't really say exactly when, but I know at least cell phones are invented. So this was creepy. I didn't find it overly scary. Interesting enough, it kept my attention, and I kept thinking, of course, like, what's gonna happen, what's gonna happen, only for this to end on a freaking cliffhanger. Because, you know, you get to a point in the book, it's like, okay, you're at like 85% of the way through. Come on, we gotta wrap this up, right? Wrapped up, nice little bow. It ends, and there's a second, I believe, a possible third book. I know for sure there's a second one. I want to get the second one, but I want to give it a little while, let this one digest a little bit. I did like it. 4 stars, a little bit creepy. I will say the devolvement, that's not the right word. I will say the way that Crowley basically crumbles from hero to not hero is very well done. And the last physical book I managed to read was Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoux. I gave this a 4.5 star rating. I really liked it. This follows Ray, who is a human girl who moves back to her hometown, and she gets entangled with Leon, who is a demon with a forked tongue. I will say, in real life, forked tongues creep me out. In books with demons, so she gets entangled not only with Leon, but the Hadleys, who basically want her for a sacrifice to a god. Don't know what else I can say about that. I really liked it. Anyways, that was all 16 physical books I read. I'm going to hop off finish my makeup. I'm just gonna put mascara on, I think. Finish my makeup, and I'll be back to wrap up with my Kindle reads and then finish out this video because I've been talking for a very long time. Alright, hopefully my lighting isn't too bad. For some reason my exposure won't change. But hopefully, really quick, I can just speed through all my Kindle reads. I ended up reading a whopping 21 books on my Kindle. Shameful. Alright, so I ended up reading Hacker ReExposed. It's the White Hat Security book 1. This is by Linzi Baxter. I ended up giving this a 3-star rating, around 300 or less pages. It's a very quick read. It follows Bridget and Alex, who knew each other when they were younger, and this is 10 or so years later. Bridget is actually the hacker, and Alex runs a business. She's hired because there is a mole of sorts in Alex's business, and they rekindle a relationship. I did find that they got back into the relationship really quick. I felt like the book could have been fleshed out a little bit more to make it a little bit more easily digestible. That's probably like a bad phrasing for that. And it had the very annoying third act breakup. Like, come on. Anyway, yeah, 3 stars. I don't think I'm gonna look up the rest of the series. Moving on to Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. This I gave 4 stars too. I really enjoyed this story. This is about LaRocca, who moves to Ireland after she loses her husband. She is an animator and she got a job offer, so she picked up her life and moved. And she moved in next door to Callum, who is an undertaker. He runs the funeral home. I'll say Callum is so sweet, like the type of man like who is over 6 foot and just like a freaking teddy bear, and you just want to protect at all costs. Love him. LaRocca is a little hot and cold with Callum because she felt guilty about her husband passing and blah blah, but it was really cute. Very like heartwarming read about rediscovering love and finding your place in the world, and it's really great. I liked it. Here's where it gets interesting. I ended up reading a lot on my Kindle, as you can see. I read Crimson River by Devney Perry. I ended up giving this a 4-star rating, and unknowing to me when I started this story, this was book 6 in a series, or like book 5, something like that. There is a full series where this is connected, but I think I was fine reading it as a standalone. So this follows Layla, who when she was on a hiking trail, she was at the river, she spots a man who ends up attacking her. She ends up surviving, the guy leaves her, but then you have Vance comes to town. He is a cop on, I think, leave, and he's been on the trail of a murderer, and it turns out that who attacked her and who he is searching for is the same person. They end up finding comfort in each other. They end up helping each other figure out what happened to her, and he figures out what happened in the past. It was cute. I like the writing style. It was interesting. I want to read the rest of the series now. And then I read a trilogy that's not a trilogy, but they all involve the same people. So from Susie Tate, I've read Unperfect, Unworthy, and Unwanted. I gave each book 4 stars. I will say, I believe Susie Tate is British. At least these books are British. And some of the slang and the way some things are written, being an American, threw me off a little bit. But Unperfect follows Mia and Max. Mia was on the run after being abused, and she ends up getting a job at Max's architect place, working in like IT, sort of. There's a theme in these books where like the guy treats the girl like crap for a little bit and then realizes like they're perfect. Second book is Yaz and Heath. Yaz is actually Max's half sister, and Heath is Max's friend. So it's older brother's best friend, that sort of trope. And Yaz is more like of a free spirit, and her family and friends like don't really get her, think that she should settle down, find a real job, and stop having her head in the clouds, basically. Heath is an absolute ass to her. Like, I give it 4 stars. I gave it 4 stars because I did like the culmination of it. I don't think Heath deserved Yaz, and the way he treated her is just abhorrent. Like, he eventually learns like that he was really bad with her. And Unwanted is between Verity and Harry. This is a second chance romance. Verity is Heath's sister, and basically Harry and Verity were kind of a couple when they were in high school. There was a betrayal of sorts. I'll go with miscommunication. He won't contact her. She gave up contacting him because he wouldn't respond. They each thought something different happened, and they meet again later in life. And the story is basically about them kind of reconnecting their relationship over the course of, I think, like 2 years when they first meet again. I'll say overall I enjoyed the series. I don't know if I'd read any more from her, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Next book was His to Love by Jenny B. I gave this 3 stars. This is between Xavier and Vanessa. It's an age gap, instant love, very, very quick read. It's a short novella. I will say not very interesting, not very spicy, not very intriguing. I gave it a 3. I believe there are more like novellas with this one. I'm not interested in it. And then I am happy to say that I won a Goodreads giveaway on my Kindle. I was gifted the book Let Me Love You by Brittany Sahin. S-A-H-I-N. I don't know how to say that. I gave this one 4 stars. It is an age gap, mafia adjacent storyline. It takes place between Maria and Enzo. Maria has been in love with Enzo for the longest time, and Enzo was attracted to her but thought that he couldn't be with her because he's older. Not like super, super older, but like old enough to warrant maybe I shouldn't date her. Basically, Enzo just ends up pushing Maria away. She ends up marrying somebody else and having a kid, who then she subsequently gets divorced with because he cheated. And the storyline just goes, his past kind of comes back to stir things up. And turns out that this book is actually technically like a book 2 in a series. The first book, which I don't have the name of off the top of my head, took place with Maria's sister. I did like the writing style. I thought it was really good, so I gave it 4 stars. I am interested in reading her sister's story, so I'll probably read that eventually. The next books I'm going to talk about are a accumulation of books, all by the same author. I got sucked in to Nisa Catherine's stories. The first book I read from her was Jackson. This is Mercy Ring 1. So I read Jackson, then Declan, then Cole, then Riker. There's only 4 books in this miniseries. Basically, these 4 men were in a Delta Squad together. Jackson and Riker actually grew up together and they enlisted together, and then they met Declan and Cole. And the story Jackson comes back to his hometown, the place he's never said he wanted to come back to, because Riker died. Riker has a sister named River who doesn't believe that Riker is dead, and she tells Jackson about it, and River actually told Jackson before he enlisted, before he left, that she loved him, and he broke her heart. So book 1 is obviously about Jackson and River reconnecting, and I will say, each book gets more and more ridiculous. Like, I didn't think it would be ridiculous. I gave all these books 4 stars. So you get River and Jackson who come together. With this story, River kind of gets tangled up with a club owner who basically smuggled guns to Canada. Declan is with Michelle, who is River's best friend. They are smitten immediately. Declan just really likes her. Michelle has a guy who wouldn't leave her alone. And what do you know? Serial killer. And you get Cole in the house that he's staying in next door, and moves a woman with her 16-year-old son. Cole is kind of afraid of love and commitment because of what happened with his father and his mother. So he eventually starts sort of a relationship of sorts with Aria, who is on the run from her ex-husband or ex-boyfriend. I don't think they were ever married. Basically got involved in drugs. So you get gun smuggling, serial killer, and drugs. They all have happy endings. But then you get to Riker, who, spoiler alert, not dead. This is the last book in the series, and this is between Riker and Blakely, who they were together overseas when they were in wherever they were. He stopped contacting her. Riker wants to seek revenge on a terrorist attack that happened to a family he grew close to. He pushes Blakely away through it all, and eventually she finds him again about a year or so later, and when she finds him, guess what? The terrorists find him. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's crazy how crazy it got. Overall, the 4 books were good. They're interesting enough so I was like, you know what? I want to read more from her. So that is exactly what I did. I read all 8 books in the Project Arma series. So this series entails Luca, Eden, Asher, Mason, Wyatt, Bodhi, Oliver, and Kai. Basically, Project Arma was a government-sanctioned program that was supposed to help soldiers heal better, train better, be better. Turns out that they were actually drugging them with DNA altering drugs, and they became essentially super soldiers. So the entire Project Arma series is about trying to take down those who started Project Arma. And subsequently, it's also, you know, love stories, because everybody gets a partner. I will say I gave, on average, most of the books 4 stars. I gave 5 stars to Wyatt, Oliver, and Kai for the sole reason of those women weren't stupid. But honestly, they were quick reads, very interesting. I was a big fan of them. I loved it so much, I decided to hop right into the next series, which is the Blue Halo series. There are 8 books also in that one, and I started with Logan, because that's book 1. You actually meet Logan in Mason's book, book 4 in Project Arma, and it's just a spin-off from that series. These men are also super soldiers, but this is after everybody from Project Arma was taken care of. They are in Idaho, whereas Project Arma is in Texas, and they are basically contending with fallout of what happened at the end of Project Arma. That is every single book I read this month. This video is gonna be forever. I know it, my apologies, but if you stuck around, thank you so much for watching. I don't know if I'm gonna read as much in November, just because obviously we have the holidays coming up, and I kind of want to try to do more content stuff, so I don't know. I spend my free time reading because I don't have a life. It feels very lame to say that I don't have any, like, friends, but it's just the way it is in my life. I don't have any friends, and it bothers me sometimes, but I like being alone, but I also kind of wish I could have friends to just go out and hang with. I don't know why I'm spilling my guts like that. But anyways, I should wrap up this video. If you have read any of these books, let me know what you think down below. Also, if you have read any of these authors and you think there's a book from them that I should pick up and read, also let me know, because I am happy to expand my TBR list. But yeah, I think that's it. If you want, you can follow me on my other socials. I'm artistryxashh everywhere, and my book accounts are Devouring Bookishly on TikTok and Instagram. I don't think I have anything else to say. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!